Was the most dangerous man in history a king, a general, or a conqueror? What if I told you he was a homeless man who lived in a barrel, owned nothing, and challenged the most powerful people on earth with just his words? This is the story of Diogenes the Cynic, a philosopher so radical, so fearless, and so utterly bizarre that he turned the ancient world upside down, and his ideas might be more relevant today than you think. Let's get one thing straight. Diogenes wasn't born into poverty. His story begins in Sinope, a wealthy Greek colony on the coast of the Black Sea. He was the son of a banker, a man in charge of the city's mint. Young Diogenes was destined for a life of comfort and privilege. But something went terribly wrong. The historical records are a bit murky, but the most common story is that he and his father were caught in a massive scandal, defacing the currency. Essentially, they were accused of tampering with the city's coins. For this crime, Diogenes was stripped of his citizenship, his wealth and his home. He was exiled, forced to leave Sinope forever. For most people, this would be the end, a total disaster. But for Diogenes, it was a profound awakening. He claimed that the oracle at Delphi had told him to deface the currency. He initially took this literally, which got him exiled. But on the road to Athens, he had a revelation. Maybe the oracle didn't mean literal coins. Maybe she meant he should deface the social currency of his time, the conventions, the traditions, the values that everyone else took for granted. So, with nothing but the clothes on his back, he arrived in Athens with a new mission: to expose the hypocrisy and foolishness of society. Athens was the center of the universe back then, bustling with commerce, politics, and of course, philosophy. Great minds like Plato were teaching in their academies. But Diogenes saw through the city's polished exterior. He saw greed, vanity, and people obsessed with things that didn't matter. So, he decided to live a life that was a complete rejection of everything Athenian society held dear. He gave up the idea of having a house and found himself a home in a large ceramic jar, what we often call a barrel, in the middle of the marketplace. This wasn't just a shelter, it was a statement. He was living in public, exposed to everyone, showing that he needed none of the comforts they craved. His commitment to minimalism was absolute. The story goes that for a while, his only possession was a simple wooden cup. One day, he was walking by a fountain and saw a young boy cupping his hands to drink water. A light bulb went off in Diogenes' head. He looked at his cup and said to himself, "A child has beaten me in simplicity." He promptly threw the cup away, realizing that even that was an unnecessary luxury. From that day on, he owned nothing. He lived by begging. But he wasn't a typical beggar. He would often ask for alms from statues, and when people asked why, he'd say he was practicing for disappointment. This extreme lifestyle was the foundation of his philosophy, Cynicism. The word cynic comes from the Greek word kynikos, which means dog-like, and Diogenes embraced it. He believed humans should live in accordance with nature, just like dogs. Dogs aren't ashamed of their bodies. They aren't obsessed with reputation, and they live completely in the present moment. Diogenes sought to do the same. He believed that virtue and happiness came not from wealth, power, or fame, but from self-sufficiency and freedom from all conventions. This meant living a life of radical honesty, no matter how uncomfortable it made everyone else. And oh, did he make people uncomfortable? His behavior was deliberately shocking. He believed that the rules of politeness were just a way to hide our true nature. So, he would eat, sleep, and even relieve himself in public. When people were horrified, he would simply ask why they performed natural acts in private, as if they were something to be ashamed of. He was a living, breathing performance artist, using his own body as his stage to challenge society's deep-seated hypocrisy. One of his most famous stunts involved a lamp. Picture this. It's the middle of a bright, sunny day in the crowded Athenian marketplace. Suddenly, here comes Diogenes, holding a little lamp, peering into the faces of the people passing by. When they asked him what on earth he was doing, he would reply with a deadpan expression, "I am looking for an honest man." The implication, of course, was that he couldn't find one, not even in broad daylight. This single act was a powerful critique of the moral corruption he saw everywhere around him. His wit was as sharp as his lifestyle was extreme, and he wasn't afraid to use it on anyone, no matter how powerful. This brings us to his legendary encounters. First, there's Plato. Plato was the head of the prestigious academy, a revered intellectual figure. In one of his lectures, Plato was trying to define what a human being is. After much thought, he came up with the definition, a featherless biped. It was a neat, academic, but slightly absurd definition. Diogenes heard this and saw an opportunity. He went and found a chicken, plucked all of its feathers off, and stormed into Plato's academy. Holding up the poor, naked bird for all the students to see, he shouted, "Behold, Plato's man!" The room erupted. Plato was humiliated, forced to add a correction to his definition. With broad, flat nails, Diogenes had brilliantly demonstrated that abstract, ivory tower philosophy was often disconnected from reality. He preferred a philosophy that was lived, not just spoken. But his most legendary encounter was with the most powerful man in the known world at the time, Alexander the Great. Alexander was a student of Aristotle, who himself was a student of Plato. He had heard tales of this strange philosopher and was intrigued. One day, while his massive army was passing through the city of Corinth, Alexander sought out Diogenes. He found him lounging in the sun, completely unbothered by the arrival of a king. Surrounded by his generals and soldiers, Alexander approached the philosopher and said, "I am Alexander the Great." Diogenes calmly replied, "And I am Diogenes the dog." Intrigued by his lack of fear, Alexander offered him a gift. "Ask of me any favor you wish," the king declared. Anyone else would have asked for gold, land, or power. But Diogenes, without even sitting up, simply gestured towards the sky and said, "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." Alexander's guards were shocked and insulted. They thought he should be punished for his disrespect, but Alexander was stunned into admiration. He turned to his men and said, "Truly, if I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." In that moment, the man who had conquered the world stood before the man who wanted nothing from it, and it was the king who seemed to be the poorer of the two. So what was the point of all this? Was Diogenes just a madman, an ancient provocateur trolling society for his own amusement? Not at all. His entire life was a philosophical experiment. His core message was about freedom, not political freedom, but a deeper, personal freedom he called autarkia, which means self-sufficiency. For Diogenes, true freedom was freedom from desire. Freedom from the need for possessions, freedom from the need for others' approval, and freedom from the fear of shame or poverty. By needing nothing, he could not be controlled by anyone. A king couldn't bribe him with gold. An enemy couldn't threaten him by taking away his possessions, because he had none. Society couldn't shame him because he had rejected the very idea of shame. He was, in his own way, invincible. He was demonstrating that happiness doesn't come from getting what you want, but from wanting what you have, even if all you have is a clay jar and the sunlight on your skin. Diogenes' life was a radical call to question everything. Why do we want the things we want? Why are we so afraid of what other people think? Are the rules we live by actually making us happy, or are they just trapping us in a cycle of endless desire and anxiety? He forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about their own lives simply by living his. He was dangerous not because he carried a sword, but because he carried an idea. The idea that you could just walk away from it all and be free. And that's a powerful and, to some, a very dangerous thought. Thanks for watching. If you found the story of this incredible philosopher interesting, consider giving this video a like and maybe subscribing for more stories about history's most fascinating minds. See you next time.